Someone was asking about the Pluto line in astrocartography, so let's go over it a little bit. Astrocartography or locational astrology is essentially where you take your natal chart and put it over a map of the world or a local space to see what areas may benefit you in certain ways over others. There are lines in astrocartography that people will just automatically say are good lines. The issue with this is that you really have to be aware of the condition of the planet in your chart to know whether or not it's going to be beneficial to you and why. For example, the Mercury line is kind of neutral, but for me, my Mercury is placed in Pisces, where it's in detriment. My Pisces Mercury also has a square to Mars in my 7th house and also makes a sextile to Uranus in my 2nd. So being on a Mercury MC line, for example, might be helpful in terms of working from home or studying abroad, but it is also going to activate my 7th house Mars and also my 2nd house Uranus, because it aspects those planets. So I might find that I tend to have a little bit more disagreements or a little bit more tension within the connections that I have in my life, but I might have a lot of really cool ideas coming in. Do you see how that kind of works? So when we look at Pluto, Pluto is a line that is commonly associated with being a line that you should avoid in astrocartography. But it really depends on where it's located, what it's aspecting, and the condition that it's in. Pluto as a planet is a generational planet, so it tends to affect the collective more so than the individual. However, Pluto lines can bring a lot of change, so death and rebirth. It can also highlight or amplify the interactions we have with authority figures, so bosses, the government, people in positions above us. But it can also represent your own power and your own authority in your life. So someone who has a well-aspected Pluto, maybe there's a lot of trines and sextiles to it, and it's not in a house where it's really difficult to work with, might have an easier time being on Pluto lines than someone who has their Pluto in detriment or has a lot of squares and oppositions to it. Someone who maybe doesn't have a well-aspected Pluto but grew up affected by a Pluto line might feel comfortable being on a Pluto line because it's familiar to them. And then there's also the Pluto AC, DC, MC, and IC. AC is going to refer usually to how you are showing up to others and also how others are perceiving you. MC is going to reflect more so on what you're leaving behind as a legacy, what you're doing for work, and how you're viewing yourself. IC refers to the home and to the past, and DC refers to interpersonal relationships. All of that factors in.